Go where your best prayers take you, unclench the fists of your spirit and take it easy. Breathe deeply of the glad air and live one day at a time. Know that you are precious and learn to trust. Amen. Well, good morning to all of you on this wonderful day and great weekend. And thank you, choir, great music. And let's see, Knoxville Choral Society has a program tonight, right? So, wonderful. Yeah, great. It's going to be patriotic music. It's going to be really good. I'm going to be out of town. I hate to miss it. It's going to be at the Tennessee Theater.
Also a piece by Renee Clausen, which is memorializing the
Piece by Renee Clausen. Wonderful. Awesome. So, something good. And we have a new kind of thing going on at St. John's. Jason, who's sitting there working, ran a marathon in Savannah yesterday. Is that awesome? I'm telling you. 3 hours. And Harriet from the choir. I think she carried him along. What was your time? 3 hours and what? 3:26:33 makes me tired to think about it. So choir, you get your running shoes on. You guys are going to get in shape. I can see it coming. Exercise for the choir. I love it. Well, welcome on this Veterans Weekend and week. At St. John's, we do celebrate it robustly with our society. As Anglicans, it is always part of our heritage, and Episcopalians, I don't know if you know why we do this. We have an American flag, just like in all countries where the Anglican Church exists. Our cousins across the world celebrate the country we live in. We've always seen ourselves as being citizens of both kingdoms, the kingdom of God and the kingdom of the society in which we dwell. And so we do robustly celebrate veterans and thank them this day, and we will do more about that. A thought I always have on this occasion is that today in our society, less than 1%, I want you to internalize that, less than 1% of all of us serves the United States military, which is a thoughtful, deep, thoughtful thing to think about. And I'm opinionated. You're not going to get those opinions, thankfully. You may have some as well. But, you know, on this Veterans Day, we remember all of our veterans, plus we remember those on active service, because we have quite a few. I think of Andy, who's sitting right there, and, you know, he was over the skies of Afghanistan or close to it shortly ago. So these men and women are around us all the time, and so few of them do the heavy lifting for so many of us. So what about this Veterans Day stuff? What is it about? Well, I heard one of the best comments I've ever heard, a quote from someone who had many citations in combat, who had served the government after his combat experience. But he said this when interviewed: "Those who saw combat or not, war or peacetime, are all Americans who invested their lives in service to our nation and have become direct participants securing our independence." And so this day, as we think about that, we do give thanks for those who make direct impact, who are direct participants about our independence. Again, that could be a long conversation that we could have as a people here and as a people of society. I saw an interview this week which illustrated so much to me about all of this. It was an interview with a man named David Winter. He's young. In the interview, he's about 25. And he's talking about, well, you're going to get what he's talking about. Here's how it started. So he's just sitting, an interviewee, and he's a young guy, and he's saying, so he says this: "The most shocking thing is boot camp." He said, "No one can prepare you. No one cares who you are or what you did in the past. In an instant, the drill instructor jumped on our bus. It was 1 a.m. at Parris Island, South Carolina. He said the drill instructor was very polite to the bus driver, and then he turned to the rest of us. And he yelled, 'You have 10 seconds to get off my bus.' And he said instantly 70 guys my age were knocking each other down to get out the door. And he said as soon as we got out, there were more drill instructors everywhere yelling at the top of their lungs, 'Get on the yellow line, get on my yellow line and shut up.' He said from that second on, for weeks, it was mayhem and bedlam. You can't do anything right. You don't know where to go. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing. But as the weeks go by, I began to understand the process and the purpose. They were stripping away what I knew and what was comfortable to join a new world of new standards and new requirements. I emerged as a new person. I learned to survive and then thrive. Marine boot camp. A few of you have done that. Oh my goodness. Now what's interesting about that interview, when I saw the interview, then you get to see David Winters today because he's in his 70s. And he was sitting laughing at the interview when he had gotten back from Vietnam and they were interviewing him at that point about being a Marine. And he laughs to see his young self. Well, I know for every veteran here, you have an experience that the rest of us do not have. And that is boot camp, isn't it? Whatever it was, some are harder than the others, I guess, but whatever the process was somehow learning to fold yourself into something larger, into a new culture, doing what someone else needed you to do immediately when they wanted you to do it, and do it the way they wanted you to do it, whether you wanted to or not, and to do it how they wanted it done. I do know that from the veterans I know. And I think that veterans learn something powerful for all of us this morning here in church. So really listen to me. Something about veteran service teaches us all something in the Christian church. You see, veterans have to learn to be at one with the soldiers and the sailors around them. They're not always happy. They don't like everything they do. But there has to be a oneness where it doesn't work. And on this Veterans Weekend, I think that message really speaks to us as Christians. Because when we serve as Christians, we too must learn to be at one. Let me give you an illustration. Heard an interview with a young man named Blade. That's actually his name, Blade. He's attractive, well-dressed, extremely well-educated. He is in his church Bible study with his priest and some other people. And they're kind of talking about their ministry experience, actually. And here's what he says. He said, I went to the homeless ministry because I wanted and thought I was called by God. He said, I really did. And then he kind of shifts uncomfortably in his seat. Kind of hangs his head a little bit. He said, I made a lot of money in my early 30s. I sold my company, but I didn't want to be a leech on the community, and I wanted to help. So Father Johnson said, why don't you go down the homeless ministry? They need help. So I went down, and first I started feeding folks, and then I got the idea maybe I could help them learn something. And I like woodworking, so I helped them set up a woodworking program, and we made bird feeders. And they got it to be an immediate hit. We could sell them. We made money. The men felt an accomplishment. They got self-worth. But he said it wasn't long. They were stealing my tools. And he said they would come in drunk and break the bird feeders. They didn't follow instructors. And then somebody came in drunk one night when we weren't there and broke every one that we had made for our fundraiser. He said, I'm telling y'all this because the St. Matthias Crafts Fair is this week, and the TV folks are coming to interview me about this. And I just feel crummy because I'm going to have to make a bunch of bird feeders. I have anybody to help. I've got to work 18 hours a day, and I'm missing a trip to the Caymans. But then listen to what he said. I just wanted to make a difference. And now I feel trapped. I feel like a failure. But I see clearly what's really happened. What really happened is that I used these men to feel good about myself. You ever heard that kind of honesty? I tell you one thing, I haven't. And I mean my own, not yours. Man, what honesty. But I want to say something now that I have your attention. You see, he's caught in a tension that every one of us in this space are caught in, without exception. And it's not the tension of having a lot and giving it to people who don't. It's got nothing to do with it. He's caught in this tension. It is that deeper need and call to serve where all of us want to make an impact. We want our effort to count, to make a difference. And we were talking in Bible study that little piece does something inside of us that almost nothing else does. Nothing will do that for you except service. I'm convinced of it. And we all know it. We just don't know quite what to do with it. And often we jump into things and they don't work out too well, like this man. But we have this need to serve, as people do in our entire society. By the way, whether they know it or not is not the issue. But at the same time, you understand, when we're serving people, they have their needs. And the needs of those people are often complex and bewildering and difficult, like the ones that we see at the Volunteer Ministry Center. Experience in the larger community and through Green Magnet School, so many of you are working at. But I want to tell you, the very same ones that we see when we work with each other at St. John's. And do you know why? Because it's human stuff. It's the stuff inside of you and me that's complex and bewildering. Not only to other people, but to ourselves. Be honest. No wonder ministry is difficult. So what would you say to Blade? He just poured out his heart, feels terrible, feels shallow. What would you say to him? Well, listen to what his priest said back. Blade, you've done a great job, but you are now in a place of real ministry and in real service. And you need to expect some pain and some inconvenience. It goes with it. It is going to be difficult in real ministry. So I'm going to suggest that you start praying, and pray relentlessly that you will begin to feel in tune with what Christ wants of you. Pray to be in tune with what Christ wants of you. And then pray to become one with those you serve. You see, he said to him, because when you start praying in that way, to understand your own purpose, to be at one with the people you serve, you'll quit worrying about success. It won't matter. Their needs and your needs will come together. See, the form of the service, the size of the service, the success of the service isn't the issue. That's why we read this story today, the widow's mite. You catch it? How much does she have? A tiny little bit. But she does give it. She doesn't keep it. But she gives it. But the amount doesn't matter. The size of the act does not matter. The size of the offering doesn't matter. The giving is what matters. And we never know what small act can contribute to the well-being, the nurturing, the difference it can make in another person's life. There is no way to measure it. If you don't trust me, then trust Mother Teresa. She said this: what we need to do is to learn to pray one another more. Ministry and service, ministry in service, isn't about doing for the poor, but about being in their suffering and sharing it with Christ. You see, when we serve others, it is about being with them where they are, and then letting, if it's 2 of you, 15 of you, or a whole Knoxville of you, being with Christ. We are not volunteering. That's for out there. You are not volunteering. When you leave here, when you wear that baptismal cross on your forehead, you are ministering. You are serving. It is not volunteering. Leave that thought behind. You're serving in ministry when we serve Christ. And when we become one in the Spirit, do you understand? When we can really become one in the Spirit, we really will become one with those we serve. It just automatically happens. You won't make it happen. It will happen for you and for me. And remember, when we're in that place, what we're doing is nothing less than pitching in to help God in this life. So, I'm going to ask all of our veterans of all those service flags that we have put up, would you please stand so we could recognize you? Please stand up. I'm really asking you to do that. Come on. And thank you all. Everybody else stand up. Thank you all. And then in salute of all of you and those who are on active duty across the United States and the world right now as we are here, let us stand and in tribute to them sing hymn 579 together. 579.